Hello and welcome to Lauren's Travels. This is my first vlog of 2025 and it's my first really book-centered vlog that I'm going to be doing, and I hope to create more book content going forward since I can't always be traveling. And if books are your thing too, please give me a subscribe. Make sure to follow along because I have a feeling there's so much to talk about when it comes to books, and I think we should all be sharing what we're reading. Maybe we'll find our next great read. So 2024 was the year that I decided to read the most books that I ever have. I set out a reading goal for myself of 75 books, and I am proud to say I accomplished it. So in this vlog, I kind of wanted to go through some of those great reads that I read, some 5-star reviewed books by me. I wanted to show you what apps I use and then kind of just talk through my reading style. What do I use to keep track of all of these books? Old school a little bit, but I do have a reading journal. Kind of started this when I started my book club, and you can see all my fun little decorated stickers in there. The first page is books that I actually want to own, but with each book I went and kind of picked stickers that go along with the book or the theme, and then I just kind of put my thoughts on everything, any quotes that really stood out. So having a reading journal is helpful because it also kind of helps you remember what those stories are and kind of your thoughts on them, because once you read so many books, things start to mesh together and you're like, wait, which one was that one about? I don't remember. So reading journals definitely help with keeping your thoughts all together on what you've read. I also use 2 different reading apps. So Goodreads is the one that I've been using ever since I can remember, for over 15 years. Goodreads to me is like the one app that everyone starts with, and I feel like it's easy to find new books based on what you've read and liked already. Using that rating system really helps in them giving you recommendations. You can also enter book giveaways, which I have more to talk about on that in a moment. And you can also see what all your friends are reading and give them comments and cheer them on their reading goals. So Goodreads is probably the one that I use the most. The second app that I like to use when it comes to documenting my books is called Storygraph. They have a way for you to import all of your reads into Storygraph from your Goodreads account. So you don't have to actually go through and add each book you've ever read. They do that for you, which is convenient. And then moving forward, you can add the books that you're reading onto there. The reason I like Storygraph a little bit more than Goodreads is because it has more options. It has a multiple option list for your ratings. Like Goodreads, you can only do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, whereas Storygraph you can do 4.25, for example. Storygraph also kind of lays out everything for you in charts, so I kind of put some of my charts here, and you could see that I really like to read fantasy and horror novels. Storygraph also has giveaways, but not as much or as often as Goodreads does, so I mostly use Goodreads for that giveaway option. Storygraph has really cool features, like you can actually pause a book. Like I've been trying to get through A Little Life, and it's over 700 pages, so I've paused that on my account. Storygraph also allows you to read along with a friend, so I want to utilize that feature more. That way, if you have certain thoughts, you can go ahead and document them, and that way your friend won't get spoiled if they're not up to that part yet. So what are my top 5 books for last year? Maybe this will help you in picking your next read, but just know that some of these books do have trigger warnings, and the first one that I'm going to talk about deals with sexual assault and grooming. So if that triggers you, maybe skip forward to the next book. My first 5-star read of 2024 was called My Dark Vanessa. The author is Kate Elizabeth Russell. And I kind of wrote down descriptions so I can be more coherent. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm reading the description for you. But 15-year-old Vanessa finds herself falling in love with her 42-year-old teacher, Jacob. We, the reader, know she's being groomed and can see the manipulation happening. The book reads like a diary and is very well written. We jump to the future Vanessa being reached out to from a former student, accusing Jacob of sexual assault, and Vanessa is reflecting on their relationship and coming to realizations and growth. Very upsetting to read, but I think the way that it's written is so well done, and I want to read more books from this author. I don't think she has any other works. Maybe she's working on something now, I don't know. But my Dark Vanessa was just so, it like stabbed me when I read it. And I like books that give me a feeling, whether it's joy, sadness, anger. But if I get any kind of feeling from a book, that's how I know it's well written and it's a good book. So I immediately texted my book club and I was like, oh my God, this book is so good, you have to read it. I think it's painful to read, but I think it's definitely something you should read if you're wanting, you know, a good story. It does have a kind of a happy ending, but you still feel for the main character because she's so conflicted, and what she's been grown up to believe is actually a farce, and it's heartbreaking. But I loved it. My second 5-star read of the year that I absolutely adored is called Divine Rivals. This one and actually the next book that I'm going to talk about are part of duologies, so there's only 2 books in the series. Divine Rivals is the first. The second book is called Ruthless Vows. The author is Rebecca Ross, and this was actually one of our book club picks for my book club. The story follows Iris and Roman, and they are journalists at their local newspaper. They're kind of rivals. I feel like Iris is trying to get a promotion and Roman is going for that same promotion, and they're just kind of butting heads a little. So it's an enemies to lovers type story, which I do love. There's actually a war going on, and their setting is a little bit mythological as well. I feel like there are maybe Greek gods or gods at play, and so the gods are fighting. Both of them have to actually go and report on this war. They don't know it until later on, but they're actually magically connected by their typewriters. So whenever one of them types out something, the other one gets it, almost like the old school type of email, but it arrives to them no matter their distance. So they communicate with each other through their typewriters, but it also helps become useful later on with the war and helping them kind of navigate how they can help and also meet up with each other at some point. One of the quotes that I saved from this book that I really like is, "It's not a crime to feel joy, even when things seem hopeless." Part 2 also made me feel really good, but the first book, I don't know, there was just something about it that I was just like, wow, this is fantastic. It completely drew me in, and I had to read the second book like right away after finishing the first. So my third 5-star reviewed book of 2024 is called Where the Library Hides, and this is where I'm actually gonna bring up those Goodread giveaways again. I actually got to read this book before it was published, which is a first for me. I've never received an advanced reader copy, also known as an ARC, before. So you can see right here, little sticker, but it's not a sticker, it's on the cover, advanced reader copy. The back looks way different than how the published book actually appears. And when I got this, I screamed. This is also a duology series. The first book is called What the River Knows, and I read that on Kindle Unlimited. I was obsessed. This book kind of feels like the Mummy movies, and it kind of feels a little magical as well. So there's adventure, there's action, there's romance, there's magic, and it just ticked off all of my boxes. So because this is the second book, it picks up where the first book left off. The main characters in the book are Inez and Whit. Inez is trying to solve her own personal family history, but also trying to look for artifacts from Cleopatra. And Whit is along for the ride. They actually have, and there's spoilers here, so if you haven't read this one and you are wanting to, maybe skip ahead. But they end up starting the book off by them getting married, but it's not a very happy marriage, and it feels kind of rushed, and it feels like there's other things going on behind the scenes with Whit that we find out later on. So you're mad at him for a lot of this book. The Goodreads giveaways, this is actually one of the books that I saw on Goodreads, and I signed up for it, but I also saw that the author posted her own type of giveaway for the ARCs. And so I entered both things and I ended up winning it through Goodreads. So always enter those Goodreads giveaways. I'm keeping this book for sure because it's so special. I also want to actually buy the physical hardcover copy because it looks really gorgeous, especially the Barnes & Noble edition. So yeah, highly recommend this duology. It has everything. It's a historical fiction, but there's romance, magic, adventure, everything you could want. So highly recommend. The author of this series is Isabel Ibanez. I also bought another book she's written, so I'm very excited to read that. And I really like her writing style as well. I think she's great. The next 5-star book of 2024 for me was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I ended up buying this one on my Kindle, hence why I'm showing off my Kindle to you now. Also, look how cute my Kindle cover is. It's very witchy and cottagecore. I have read every book by this author officially, and I think this is his best. It's very spooky. It's set on a Maine town, and it's this crumbling mansion that is on a hillside or a mountainside of the ocean. So it's like right by the ocean, it's crumbling, there's decay. It's an amazing setting for the story. This is a mystery thriller type of novel. We follow the main character, Kit, who is a home health aide, and she's coming to care for Lenora, who is the owner of the mansion. Lenora is accused of killing her whole family in 1929, so her mom, dad, and sister. They even actually have like nursery rhymes and chants that the town folk have made up about this family. The police never could prove that Lenora did it, so she's still under that suspicion all these decades later. So we're in the early 80s when Kit comes to Lenora. Lenora can't talk. She's had several strokes, so she's mute. So she actually uses a typewriter to communicate with Kit. She basically tells Kit, I didn't do it. Kit is trying to find out and unravel this mystery that's decades old, while spooky things, of course, begin to happen. And this whole book left me feeling, anxious and excited, and felt like I was in the main character's shoes. It really played out well, and I think it was really well written. And like I said, best of Riley Sager's that I've ever read, and I've read them all. So you'll have to let me know if you've read his books, which one you prefer. And my last 5-star book that I want to go over is called The Honey Witch by Sydney Shields. This is actually a book I found at the library, and I had to immediately go for it without even knowing too much of what it was about because, number one, the cover is gorgeous. So this book was very cozy feeling. It was very homey. Of course, it deals with a witch. A lot of my favorite stories do. Her name is Marigold, and her grandma is actually the town witch. She helps she lives on a little island in a cottage. She helps the animals and the spirits and the people of the island, but unfortunately she's sick and dying. She decides to take in her granddaughter and teach her her magical ways before she passes on. Eventually she does pass on, so Marigold does feel a little overwhelmed with this new magic, and she notices things are starting to go wrong. But there's also another thing with this story, is that her bloodline is cursed so that they can never fall in love. They basically have to choose if they want to have magic or fall in love. Marigold ends up meeting some friends on the island. One of them is named Lottie. Lottie is a non-believer. She does not believe in magic at all. Marigold tries to change her mind on that, but they also end up catching feelings for each other. So this book is a little LGBTQ+. It's a little magic, it's a little good feelings, and beautiful imagery described throughout the book. So I think it was also another really well-written book. This is another book that I've added that I want to have in my personal library, not just from my library in my town. Out of the 75 books that I've read, 44 of those were digital, which I got through either Kindle Unlimited or purchased for me, or I purchased on my Kindle. 31 books physical, so those were either purchased by me, I got them from the library or I borrowed them from a friend. Majority of the books that I read were between 300 to 500 pages, which it makes sense. I was trying to read some shorter books just to kind of make my reading goal, because I can't be reading 700 plus page books every month, which is why I'm currently stuck on A Little Life, but I will finish that in 2025. 75 books read for 2024, which I think is pretty spectacular. I am kind of going lower in my reading goal this year for 2025. I'm aiming to read 40 books, and if I reach 40, I'll try to aim for 50, but I wanted to learn a little bit more of new skills and more hobbies. So crochet is on my list, and also, you know, doing more exercise, all of those things that we plan to do at the beginning of the year, and we'll see if we actually follow through with them. I love the way crochet things look, and I want to be able to make gifts for my friends and family, and I think that's a good option. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let's talk books in the comments, and I also leave all of my Goodreads and Storygraph links in the description box, so if you're on those apps too and you want to follow along, let's follow each other. And yeah, I'll see you next time on Lauren's Travels for more book talk. Bye!